Welcome to the Grammar Cat. I hope that you've got a cup of tea or perhaps even a furry friend as we delve into today's video topic, which is tenses. Now, before we get going, it's important to ask the question, why are we studying this section? Well, by appreciating tense as well as tense shift, it helps us to both better communicate when an event occurred as well as understand when that event occurred. Being precise and avoiding ambiguity is all part and parcel of being an effective communicator. And so in this video, I'm going to be giving you the knowledge and tools to effectively make use of all the different tenses, as well as discuss them using the correct terminology. So let's get started. So in this video, we will look at the different tenses in the English language, namely past, present, and future. And I know what you're going to say. I know past, present, and future. What more is there to learn? Well, there's much, much more. The past, present, and future can be further divided into the continuous, perfect, and perfect continuous tenses. And that is what we are going to focus on today. So what is a continuous tense? Well, the continuous tense indicates an ongoing action. So for this, we make use of our present participles, and those are our verbs that end in ing. Twiggy was playing with her toy mouse when I arrived home. I want to indicate that she was busy playing when I arrived home, part of that continuous action. The perfect tense indicates a completed action. So for this, I make use of my past participle, and those are verbs ending in ed and en. Twiggy will have eaten 2 kgs of kibbles by the end of the month. This shows a completed action that will occur in the future. In other words, she would have completed the action of eating, so she would have eaten those 2 kgs of kibbles by the end of the month at that future date, which is obviously a month away. Perfect continuous tense can be a little bit tricky, but this focuses on the completion of an action that is, was, and will be in progress. So what does this mean? Well, for this tense, we need to make use of both our past participles and our present participles. An example would be, Twiggy has been playing for hours. What this is showing is that Twiggy started playing in the past and she has continued to play into the present. Or she continued playing for most of the day or for hours during this day. So if I arrived home and I asked my husband, what has Twiggy been doing all day? He would say, she has been playing for hours. Currently, today, she has been playing for hours. So that has to do with my perfect continuous tense. When we're looking at tense, we need to understand that tense is found in the verb. And so we're going to spend a lot of time thinking about the auxiliary verb, that is my helping verb, and my different participles. And we're going to be using past and present participles in the forming of these different tenses. I'm going to be using this table in order to explain the different tenses, so it's worth drawing it up and following along. And we're going to make use of just a simple verb example to fill this in. So let's use the example of eat, because my cat enjoys eating. So she's singular, so we're going to use singular and we're going to say she eats. Is that in present, past, or future? Well, of course, it's in the present, isn't it? So I'm going to put it in that block. Now, how would you put it into the past? You may be tempted to use eating or eaten, but you can't make use of those. She eats, and it would be she ate. How would you move that into the future tense? It would be she will eat. Now we're going to put it into the continuous. So those were examples of the simple tenses. She eats, she ate, she will eat is just in the simple present, past, and future. What if it was an ongoing action? Well, I want to make use of my present participle, move eat into its present participle, into that form by adding ing. So now what I want you to do is put into each one of those blocks into past, present, and future. So she eating. And it's the auxiliary verb that will actually shift she eating into the past, present, and future. So let's start with the present first. She is eating. What would I add for the past? She was eating. And if she was eating in the future, she will be eating. So there I've used the auxiliary verbs of is, was, and will be to show you the shift in tense from present, past to future. But eating stays the same. It's auxiliary verbs, the helping verb that's actually shifting that tense up and down. Right, now let's look at our perfect tenses. Our perfect tense is going to be made up of our ed or en participle. So if it's eat, what are you going to shift it into? Eaten. Okay, so let's put eaten once again in each one of those blocks. Now let's start with the present again. How do I say that she is presently just finished eating her food? It is a completed action. She eaten in the present tense is she has eaten. So if I arrived home and saw my cat looking rather hungry and I said to my husband, "Oh, the cat looks hungry. Have you fed her?" He'll say, "Don't believe that face. She has eaten. She has eaten today. She has completed the action of eating today in the present and at this point no longer needs to eat. She has done it." If I had to put that in the past, it would be she had eaten. She had eaten yesterday when I arrived home. It's an action she completed in the past. The way to remember the distinction is by substituting that past participle with another object. So take away eaten and rather put in another object such as this cup. So if Twiggy has the cup, she has it now. She has the cup. She has eaten. If she had the cup yesterday, she had the cup. So had has to do with the past. So replace eaten or any past participle with an item, whatever item you like, to check the difference between has and had so you don't make that very common mistake. She had eaten. Okay, but I know what you're going to ask. You're going to say, but why don't we just use the simple past tense? Why can't we say Twiggy ate? That would be a lot easier. She ate. Well, there is a difference between she ate and its past perfect tense form. So we use the past perfect tense form to talk about something that has happened before another action in the past. So Twiggy had already eaten her kibbles when I arrived is different to Twiggy ate her kibbles when I arrived. In the first example, let's go back to that. In the first example, Twiggy had already eaten her kibbles when I arrived. It sounds like when I arrived, she had already finished eating. The feeding had ended. It has been done. In the second example, Twiggy ate her kibbles. It sounds like she actually only ate the food once I arrived home. So there is a difference between using the simple past and the past perfect tense in terms of when the eating actually occurred. Did it occur when I arrived, so she ate there after that, or did it occur before I arrived and I noticed that she had already eaten? It was completed. Next, we're going to put it into the future tense. So, she will have eaten. She will have eaten. So, if I wanted to say, by the time I get home, Twiggy will have eaten her kibbles. That action would have been completed. Now let's talk about that perfect continuous tense. Like I said, we're going to be making use of both the past and the present participle. So we're going to be making use of our ing and our en or ed ending. What does that look like? In making use of our present participle, we're going to be using eat, and so the present participle form is of course eating. For the past participle, I'm going to be making use of be. In the past participle, it will be been. So been eating will now be in every block. We're always going to use been, and we will add whatever other ing ending verb we want to make use of. So here, of course, in this example is eating. Now let's put this into the present. She, and before you make the mistake, remember that we are going to be replacing been eating. Because of the word been, we're going to be tempted to think it's in the past. So replace been with my cup. She, if she has it in the present, she has. So she has been eating. Let's look at what that present perfect continuous tense actually means. The present perfect continuous tense is not just a mouthful. It actually indicates how long an action has been happening up until now in the present. So, like I said, we're going to have both those past and present participles, and I'm going to show you in another example so that you just see some more examples so it makes sense. Now I'm going to use the example of Twiggy playing for hours, and I want to show that that happened up until I arrived home, for instance. So been, we're going to use been like I said, so Twiggy been playing, and we're going to be putting in has to show that she's been playing for hours, and it has to do with today. If I came home and I said to my husband, what has Twiggy been doing today? He will say, Twiggy has been playing for hours. It's an ongoing action that happened over the day, but it was completed today, completed in this time frame. I want to know how long it was completed up until now. So in this situation, I've added in for hours. So now that we understand a little bit about the present perfect continuous tense, let's have a look at the past perfect continuous tense. So like I said, remember to substitute the mug. If she had the mug, then in this situation, she had been eating. Now, what is the past perfect continuous tense? The past perfect continuous tense is used to talk about longer situations that continued up to the moment in the past we are talking about. So we're going to be using the past and the present participles to do this. And the example at the bottom says, Twiggy had been playing when the door swung open. So had shows me that it was in the past. So what we're analyzing here is we're trying to determine what had she been doing up until the point where the door swung open. Well, she had been playing. Both the door swinging open is in the past, the door swung open, and the activity of playing was both in the past. So I'm showing how those ideas relate to each other. And by using that past perfect continuous tense, I'm showing you that the playing happened before the door swung open. So I know what you're asking. Why can't we just say she was playing when the door swung open? So once again, there is a bit of a difference in meaning. Twiggy was playing when the door swung open is obviously in my past continuous tense, and Twiggy had been playing when the door swung open is in my past perfect continuous tense. In the first example, in the example where it says Twiggy was playing, this emphasizes that she was playing at the exact moment when the door swung open. Okay, at that exact moment in the past, she was playing. Twiggy had been playing when the door swung open rather emphasizes that she had been playing for a while before that exact moment when the door swung open. And perhaps she finished playing when the door swung open. Okay, so it shows that that action was interrupted by the door being swung open. So you can see that this actually helps us to make it more clear what was happening. When was the playing occurred and when did it end? And the same with this past perfect continuous tense in terms of the eating. When did the eating happen? When did it begin? And when did it end? Lastly, we're going to put it into the future. For my future tense, I'm going to therefore add the auxiliary verb of will have. So she will have been eating. Now you may be asking, when would you use the future perfect continuous tense, Mrs. Edgecombe? Well, the future perfect continuous tense indicates how long an action has been happening for up until a future date, and it makes use of both the past and present participles. So in this example, by the time I get home, Twiggy will have been playing for hours. I'm indicating that Twiggy will have been playing for hours by the time I get home. Okay, so at that future date, she would, or that future time in the day, she would have been playing the whole day, and by the time I get home, that would have accumulated to quite a few hours. Okay, so when we're looking at that future perfect continuous tense, we are going to be making use of the auxiliary verb of will have in order to complete that grid. Please note that future tense, when I'm talking about I or we, if I use I or we actually make use of shall, not will. So it would be correct and more correct to say I shall eat, I shall be eating, etc., rather than saying I will eat, I will be eating. Will generally has to do with when we're more adamant about something. So if we're adamant that we're going to do something, then we make use of will, but otherwise it is far more correct to use shall, although this is becoming more of a formal example. Now we're going to see how this would change in terms of plural and how I make use of different auxiliary verbs when I'm using the plural. So for the simple tenses, quite simply, we've got they stalk. If it had been singular, it would be she stalks. Okay, so stalk is the plural form. Stalked and will stalk stays the same. What about in the present, for the present participle? Well, I'm still going to make use of stalking. And for the present tense, it's going to be they are. In the past, it will be they were. And in the future, it's going to be they will be. So will be stays the same, but I'm going to be using are and were in the plural. The same goes for the perfect tenses. When I'm putting it into the past participle, I of course am still going to make use of stalked. Okay, so I'm just using stalked. That would not change if it was singular or plural. But if it's in the present tense, the present perfect tense, remember, don't make the mistake, use another object. Replace stalked with the cup. They have. Have is your plural for your perfect tense. And what about in the past perfect? You're going to make use of the auxiliary had. Remember the cup. And in the future, you're going to make use of will have. So that stayed the same. Now let's look at that perfect continuous tense, and remember we're making use of both our past and present participles. And so stalk, we're going to make use of been stalking. Okay, been stalking. So let's put that into the present. They have. In the past it would be they had, and in the future it will be they will have. So do you see how, whether it's singular or plural, I'm going to be using either the singular or plural verb form of that auxiliary. Okay, so of that auxiliary verb, I need to make sure that I've used the singular or the plural, depending on the subject of the sentence. So the best way to come to grips with this particular topic is to practice. And so please write down this grid and use other verbs that you can think of to fill it in so that you really become confident with this topic. So thank you, that's all for now. And remember, learning is a journey, not a destination. Bye!